Hi there, I'm Ed Merrison from CellarHand. I'm here in the Yarra Valley on a beautiful spring day with Sandra de Pury from Yeringberg. Sandra, tell us exactly where we are right now.
Right at this moment, we're standing in the Shiraz vineyard in about row 10. So this is where the grapes come for the Yeringberg Shiraz.
So when were these vines planted here? Obviously the property here goes way back into the 1800s. What about where we are right now?
Yeah, so these vines were planted in 1999 on a new site for Yeringberg. We'd never had vines on this spot before. It's north facing and really steep and rocky. Before that, we used to have Shiraz back in the 1880s and in the 1980s, but now we've started again with Shiraz.
Yeah, right. Quite a long journey there. What's been the sort of stylistic evolution of the Yeringberg Shiraz from your point of view? What have you learnt about it on your way through?
I've learned a lot about trying to make Shiraz that really suits the Yarra Valley. So managing the ripeness, so the grapes ripen but at not such a high alcohol. I think in the early years they got away from us a bit and we weren't really sure what Yarra Valley Shiraz was going to look like, but now I think we're getting quite settled. The vines are 20 years old and we're getting a medium weight, more akin to a Pinot in some ways than to a South Australian Shiraz, but still definitely Shiraz.
Okay, so how does that work with, when you're picking the grapes and how you treat them in the winery to honour, I suppose, that sort of cool climate, more perfumed style of Shiraz?
Yeah, so it's just about managing, a lot of it is managing the crop load so that they don't ripen too quickly, but then making sure that we get enough sun exposure so that the tannins get ripe, and then using a range of different fermentation techniques. So we use whole bunch, whole berry, destemmed. Every tank has a different fermentation technique to capture as much complexity and perfume as we can.
Right, and as you go through, I assume that that's a little bit more also, so you're not envisaging the outcome of that wine, but also working with what the vintage is giving you in terms of which components are going to work for the wine.
Oh yeah, every year is different. Yeah, so some year, if it's a cool year, probably less whole bunch, for example.
And there's also a little dash of Viognier, of course. There's a Viognier varietal white wine made on the property. That's always been part of the wine. How does that? So that's co-ferment thrown in. We're at roughly 3-4%.
Yeah, so it's always about 3%. So we count the buckets of Shiraz and then we calculate out 3% and go down to the Viognier where we've saved some under nets, and then that goes in at the crusher co-fermented. So it's not on the label as Shiraz Viognier. Yep. On the label it's just Shiraz, but it always has a small percentage of Viognier.
Has there ever been part of you tempted to change? I mean, obviously Shiraz, the word Shiraz here has a huge history. It's not just synonymous with other parts of Australia, but I suppose in some areas this would be called a Syrah for its silkiness and its cool climateness, but I like the way that you're sticking with tradition on that one. And just a little bit, we have the 2018 Shiraz. I thought was a particularly nice year. Well, tell us a little bit about that season for Shiraz.
2018 was a lovely vintage in the sense of it has real fruit richness and almost a plushness to it. It's quite a rounded, plush wine, beautiful perfume, and a fine structure.
Yeah, and overall, so in a nutshell, then the Yeringberg Shiraz, how do you, in terms of its sort of texture, its aromatic profile, and its general presentation on the palate, how do you see that wine? I know it's obviously, you're very proudly presenting vintage variation here, but how do you see the characteristics of that wine year in, year out?
I think one of the things I really aim for in Shiraz is to make a wine that I can call a supple wine. Supple in terms of, there's not too much of any one thing. It's very balanced in your mouth. There's definitely fruit and perfume, but definitely also really fine tannins that are part of the wine, but not Cabernet tannins, but really fine and long, a really long finish, with a decent amount of acidity that just comes with this site and the climate. But yeah, I go back to, I think what I really like one of our Shiraz, it's when I think, oh yeah, it's supple.
Yeah, lovely. Well, it is a lovely wine, and hopefully you'll get a chance to try it. We've got the dogs playing in the background here, but thanks very much, Sandra. Looking forward to having another taste of that Shiraz.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Ed.